Welcome back to the deep dive. If you are, prepping for a meeting or just trying to get up to speed on the field, or maybe you're navigating one of the most physically exhausting periods of human life, parenthood. If you are, you know that few topics generate more questions and, well, less actual rest than infant sleep. The information out there is just overwhelming, and it's often contradictory. It forces you to constantly reconcile two things. What's a realistic expectation for how long they'll sleep, and what are the non-negotiable standards for safety? So we've pulled together a stack of the latest pediatric research and expert guidelines, and our mission today is to distill those key milestones and, crucially, to clearly outline the safety practices that drastically reduce the risk of SIDs and suffocation. We want you to walk away feeling informed, prepared, and maybe, just maybe, ready to tackle those midnight awakenings with a bit more confidence. Okay, let's unpack this.
I think it's so important to start with expectations. So much parental anxiety comes from believing their baby should be sleeping longer than they physically or, developmentally can. The sources are really clear on this. Variability is the only constant in those early months.
Okay, let's start there. That crucial 0 to 4 month period. Everyone talks about the sleeping like a baby cliche, but the reality is so much more fragmented. What are we actually looking at in terms of raw hours, and why is it so erratic?
The raw numbers are, well, they're wild. Anywhere from 11 to 19 hours in a 24-hour day.
That's a huge range.
It's a massive range. But the why is the real insight here. A newborn sleer is fragmented for really two main physiological reasons. First, their stomach capacity. It's tiny.
So they have to eat constantly.
Constantly, often every 2 to 4 hours.
Mhm.
And second, they just haven't developed a consolidated circadian rhythm yet. They don't have that reliable difference between day and night in their hormones, so sleep is organized purely around need, not a schedule.
So if you're a parent and you're looking at that schedule, and your baby is on the 11-hour high wake-up end of the scale, you shouldn't panic. That's completely normal.
Absolutely not. Panic only sets in when you compare your newborn to some idealized future baby. What you should be looking for is the shift. That marks a really significant developmental leap.
And when does that shift happen? When do we start seeing that light at the end of the tunnel?
That consolidation starts to begin around the 4 to 6 month window. This is where the daily total sleep need drops just a little bit. It settles into around 12 to 16 hours, but the pattern fundamentally changes. This is when the baby's brain is maturing the systems needed for longer sleep. Melatonin production gets more predictable, establishing that day-night cycle, and their digestive system can handle longer stretches between feedings.
So the body is now physically capable of consolidating that sleep. Is that the magic point where the baby sleeps through the night?
For most babies, yes, sometime during that 4 to 6 month window. But, and this is a big but, the sources caution that sleeping through the night is often defined by pediatricians as a stretch of just 5 to 6 hours.
Which, for a lot of parents, does not feel like through the night.
Not at all. It is a milestone, but exceptions absolutely exist. It depends on feeding method, genetics, all sorts of things.
And once we get past 6 months, are we generally in the clear? Or does the complexity just increase in different ways?
The complexity definitely increases, but on the duration side, you're a bit clearer. From 6 to 12 months, the bulk of sleeping is happening at night. However, this is when the brain gets really, really busy. Your sources point out that things like teething, illness, growth spurts, or especially developmental milestones like learning to crawl or talk can trigger those dreaded sleep regressions.
Ah, yes, the regressions.
Right, and they can lead to nighttime awakenings. The goal sort of shifts from consolidating sleep to maintaining it while the baby's whole world is expanding.
That makes perfect sense. The brain is literally too busy processing to sleep peacefully. Okay, let's transition from the when they sleep to the how. We need to talk about establishing good habits and fostering that sleep independence. What does consistency and routine actually do for them?
Consistency helps the baby predict what comes next. In those first few months, the schedule is all about hunger. But as the baby matures, the routine, bath, book, song, sleep sack, it signals to the body that it's time to wind down. This is the real foundation for teaching independent sleep.
Independent sleep, meaning teaching them to fall asleep on their own rather than relying on a parent to rock or feed them all the way into unconsciousness.
Yeah.
Why is that concept so critical? Isn't rocking them just natural and soothing?
It is absolutely soothing, and that bonding is wonderful. But the goal here is to break the sleep association. You have to think about it from the baby's perspective. If they fall asleep while being nursed or rocked in your arms, that specific environmental trigger, that rocking motion, the taste of milk, becomes their necessary cue for sleep.
And when they naturally cycle between sleep stages later in the night and wake up a little bit, They notice that cue is gone.
Exactly. If they wake up and their internal environment doesn't match the one they fell asleep in, mom or dad is gone, the rocking has stopped. It triggers anxiety. They panic because the conditions for sleep have vanished.
So they need the parent to come back and recreate it.
Right. By contrast, if you put them down drowsy but awake, they learn to soothe themselves to sleep. That makes them much more likely to just transition between sleep cycles and fall back asleep on their own when they wake up at 2 a.m.
That completely reframes it. It's not a punishment. It's a preventative measure against nighttime anxiety.
Precisely. And we can't forget the daytime foundation for all this. Dr. Nilong Vyas provides a crucial insight here. She emphasizes that naps are not optional. She says, and I'm quoting here, "When the foundation of adequate sleep is laid during the day and the child is not overtired, they can consolidate their sleep cycles together at night with fewer wake-ups. It is essential for children of all ages not to skip and drop naps prematurely."
That is such a common mistake, isn't it? Parents thinking if they eliminate that afternoon nap, the baby will be so tired they'll sleep longer at night.
And it almost always backfires. Overtiredness leads to a spike in cortisol, making it harder for the baby to settle down and stay asleep. It leads to fractured night sleep, not consolidation.
Okay, let's pivot from duration and habits to safety. This is the non-negotiable section. Here's where it gets really interesting, because we're looking at the evidence that helps save lives. We're talking about reducing the risk of SIDS, sudden infant death syndrome. We all know the definition, an unexplained death of a seemingly healthy baby under 1. But to really get why the safety rules are so critical, we need to understand the leading theory for how SIDS occurs. That's the triple risk model.
That model provides the context. It suggests SIDS happens when 3 factors temporarily overlap. First, the baby has an underlying vulnerability, like an issue in the brain structure that controls breathing or arousal. Second, they're in a critical developmental period. Most SIDS deaths happen between 2 and 4 months. And third, they are exposed to an external stressor.
The unsafe sleep environment.
That's the one. That's what triggers the event.
So we can't control the underlying vulnerability or the developmental period, but we can completely eliminate that external stressor. And that's why the positioning rule is the ultimate safety tool.
Absolutely. The single most important action parents and caregivers can take is related to positioning. Always place the baby on their back for every sleep. And that means nap time, nighttime, at home, in childcare when you're traveling. Every single time.
A concern we hear a lot is the fear of choking, especially if a baby is prone to spitting up. What do the experts say about that risk when they're on their back?
The evidence is overwhelmingly reassuring. Healthy babies who spit up a lot are still safer on their backs. Babies have a really strong gag reflex and a protective airway anatomy. They're far more likely to naturally swallow or cough up fluids than they are to choke on them. In fact, placing a baby on their stomach increases the risk of rebreathing CO2 that gets trapped in soft bedding. So the risk of SIDs far, far outweighs the theoretical risk of choking.
So when does this firm rule change? When can the baby safely sleep in a different position?
It changes once the baby achieves 2 things at the same time. They are capable of rolling over reliably on their own, and they're past the 6-month mark. At that point, if they roll from their back to their tummy or side while sleeping, there's no need for the parent to go in and manually put them back. They have the motor skills and arousal mechanisms to handle it safely.
Okay, let's build out the safe sleep space checklist. What needs to be in the crib, and maybe more importantly, what absolutely must be out?
Every single component of that sleep area has to be firm and flat. So we're talking about a crib, a cradle, or a bassinet that meets modern safety standards, paired with a firm, flat mattress and a tightly fitted sheet. That's it. And there should be 0 gaps between the mattress and the sides.
And the exclusion list. This is where I think a lot of well-meaning parents get tripped up. They want to make the space look cozy.
That coziness is a lethal risk for infants. You have to exclude all loose, soft items. That means absolutely no blankets, no pillows, no bumper pads, and I really want to emphasize bumper pads. They are a strangulation and suffocation risk. No mattress toppers, no sleep positioners, and no toys.
Nothing.
Nothing. If the baby turns to their head, any soft material near their face creates an immediate risk of suffocation.
We also need to talk about where the baby sleeps. The risk extends beyond just the crib itself.
Correct. We have to strictly avoid putting babies to sleep on waterbeds, air mattresses, recliners, or, and this is a critical one, sofas or couches. A sofa is extremely dangerous because a baby can slip into the cushions or get wedged against the back. That can lead to positional asphyxia or suffocation.
And what about less obvious risks, like accessories they might be wearing?
Strangulation is a real danger. Before you put the baby down, you have to remove bibs, necklaces, anything with ties or hoods. The crib should be completely bare.
What about swaddling? It's so common for soothing in the newborn stage. What's the hard and fast rule for when to stop?
You want to use a safe, secure technique, arms restrained, but hips free for proper development. But the non-negotiable cutoff is immediate. You have to stop swaddling the instant the baby shows the very first sign of being able to roll over, even if they only do it once. Just once. The swaddle restricts their arms, and if they roll onto their stomach while swaddled, they can't push themselves back up. The swaddle becomes a suffocation hazard. Now, moving into the physical setting of the room, we need to clarify the difference between room sharing and bed sharing.
They sound similar, but they carry vastly different risks and recommendations, right?
Vastly different. Room sharing is strongly encouraged. This means the baby sleeps in their own safe space, their crib or bassinet, but it's placed in the parent's room within arm's reach. This is recommended for at least the first 6 months, ideally for the first year. Having the baby close by makes it easier to monitor them and may even offer protection against SIDs.
But the sources are equally, unequivocally clear that bed sharing where the baby sleeps on the same surface as an adult or older child significantly increases the risk of SIDs and accidental suffocation.
And we have to be really honest about these risks, because exhaustion can cloud anyone's judgment. The dangers are numerous. The baby can get trapped between surfaces, like the mattress and the wall. An adult or older child can roll over and smother the baby.
Which is a huge risk if the adult is extremely tired or, impaired by alcohol or medication.
A huge risk. Plus, you have adult soft bedding that can cover the baby's head.
And the market is flooded with these products nests, pods, that claim to make bed sharing safe. But that's just not supported by the data, is it?
Absolutely not. Those products, even when they're marketed as safe for co-sleeping, are dangerous. Their padded sides and soft material actually increase the risk of suffocation and overheating when used next to an adult in a large bed. They don't mitigate the core risks of an adult body or soft adult bedding.
Okay, finally, let's talk about overheating. It's another significant external stressor in that SIDS risk model. How do we manage the baby's temperature safely?
The rule of thumb for temperature is pretty straightforward. Keep the room comfortable for a lightly clothed adult. If you're comfortable, the baby is probably comfortable. When you're dressing the baby for sleep, they are safest in properly fitted sleepwear. A one-piece sleeper or a properly sized sleep sack, they do not need blankets at all.
And if you are using a sleep sack, what should you look out for in terms of the fit?
Sizing is critical. If it's too big, the baby's head can slip down inside, which is a suffocation risk. If it's too tight around the chest, it can restrict movement, which is dangerous if they roll onto their tummy. You should be able to get 2 fingers comfortably under the neck opening. That's a good test.
Let's switch gears to troubleshooting. This is where the rubber meets the road. What do we do when those inevitable awakenings happen, especially when we're trying to encourage independent sleep?
Right. When the baby wakes up crying, the first step is a quick, quiet assessment. You check for hunger, discomfort, a wet diaper. You want to address the need efficiently without introducing too much light or stimulation, which basically signals party time to their developing brain.
You mentioned light and the recommendation for red light bulbs. That's a fantastic science-backed detail. Why specifically red light?
What's so fascinating is how the eye develops. In the newborn phase, the photoreceptors in the infant's retina are highly sensitive to green and blue wavelengths. That's the spectrum of a typical white or blue nightlight.
And those wavelengths suppress melatonin, the sleep hormone.
Exactly. But infants can't easily perceive the red light waves in the same way.
So using a red bulb lets the caregiver see enough to do a change or a feeding, but it doesn't disrupt the baby's nascent circadian rhythm or suppress their sleep hormones.
Exactly. It minimizes the arousal, makes it easier for them to go back to sleep. And when you're soothing, the advice is to, pat them gently or say a few reassuring words, but really try to resist taking them out of the crib unless it's strictly necessary.
Keep reinforcing that the crib is a safe place for sleep.
Yes, and try using a pacifier that has actually been shown to be protective against SIDs.
But what about the emotional component? Around 6 months, that separation anxiety can really ramp up. It's so hard to leave a crying baby who knows you're just in the next room.
It is extremely hard. The strategy has to be a balance. Give plenty of focused love and attention during the day, fill up that emotional tank, but hold firm on encouraging independence at night. Consistent reassurance, keeping the check-ins short, and sticking to the routine will guide them through that anxious phase.
And finally, let's address the sleep regressions. We listed the common times: 4, 6, 8, 12, 18 months. But what is actually happening physiologically, and how do you navigate them without undoing all the good habits you've worked so hard for?
The term regression is a bit misleading. It's actually a progression. The 4-month one is the biggest because it's linked to a permanent shift in sleep architecture. Babies start sleeping in adult-like cycles, moving through lighter and deeper stages, but they haven't learned how to connect those cycles yet. They wake up after a light stage and panic.
I see. And the later ones?
Later regressions are usually linked to mastering major physical or cognitive skills. Crawling, pulling up, a language explosion. Their brain is just on fire.
So the brain is actively consolidating new information while they should be sleeping. That must be incredibly frustrating for the baby.
It is, and Dr. Vias highlights that the parent's response really dictates how long this phase lasts. The key is responding to the need without becoming the sleep mechanism. You address the illness, the hunger, or the emotional distress, but you still allow them to fall back asleep independently.
If you start rocking them back to sleep during a regression, you've just created a new sleep association that you'll have to break later.
You've got it. Respond with comfort, but don't take over the responsibility for them falling asleep. Keep the routine consistent, and remember these phases are temporary.
Okay, to wrap up, we need to touch on two critical external factors that significantly impact SID's risk. First up, breastfeeding.
Breastfeeding is a protective factor against SIDs. The research shows that breastfeeding for at least 2 months lowers the risk by about half. And the longer you breastfeed, the greater the protective effect. Now, if a parent is feeding at night, it is absolutely essential to know the severe risks of falling asleep while feeding and to immediately transfer the baby back to their safe, separate sleep space afterward.
And the other major external risk factor is smoke and vaping exposure.
The data here it's stark. Being smoke-free, both before and after birth, decreases SID's risk significantly. 1 out of every 3 SID's deaths could be prevented if pregnant women did not smoke. Any exposure to smoked cigarette or cannabis, including secondhand smoke, increases the risk after birth.
And vaping isn't a safe alternative.
Not at all. Vaping is equally dangerous. It exposes the baby to nicotine and other harmful chemicals which interfere with the arousal systems that protect the baby during sleep.
Wow. That covers the full spectrum, from duration expectations and milestones to the foundational safety rules that can literally save a baby's life.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the framework for infant sleep is built on balancing the reality of a baby's evolving biology with the critical environmental controls needed to mitigate known risks. The two go hand in hand. Managing realistic expectations and promoting good habits encourages independent sleep, which ultimately reduces the desperation that leads exhausted parents to make dangerous choices, like bed sharing, that compromise that safe environment.
That's a powerful synthesis. And here's a final provocative thought for you to mull over, specifically concerning that safe environment and those moments of transition. The research is clear. Anytime your baby falls asleep in a car seat, a stroller, a high chair, a swing, or a bouncer, you must move them to a crib, cradle, or bassinet as soon as you stop moving. Sleeping in a sitting position is dangerous because the baby's head can fall forward, restricting their airway. This critical transition moment is so often overlooked by caregivers when they are exhausted and just happy the baby is asleep. Keep them on their back, on a firm, flat surface, every single time. That's it for this deep dive. We hope this information helps you navigate those challenging early months and perhaps reclaim a few hours of sleep tonight.